So we got a question from Mina on Instagram who's having trouble rolling with higher belts because she psychs herself out. She says that when she's been training for 6 months, and when she trains with some of the higher belts, the colored belts in her gym, along with the size difference that many of them have on her, like they're a little bit bigger than her, most of the time when she rolls with them, she doesn't really go for it because her mindset is that she's going to lose, so she can't really convince herself to really go for it. And so this is something that she's trying to get over, and she sent me the message obviously to see if she can get some help. So Mina, thank you for the question. And this is something I've seen happen so many times over the years as a coach. Like, there's a lot of visitors that come to my gym now, right? And every now and then, the visitors will come in, might have like a purple or maybe a brown belt, right? There was one instance in particular that I'm thinking about with a brown belt, where this brown belt comes in and it's, on a no-gi day here in the mat. So it's not a gi day. So nobody knows what rank they are. I introduce him. I don't say his rank. I just like, hey, this guy, like, welcome here and let's train. So when I watch my students roll with him, I watch some of the blues and purple belts roll with him, and they're nipping at his heels, right? They're giving him a good run. And you can always tell when someone's really rolling or when a higher belt's sort of playing down. There he was really rolling. He was exhausting a lot of energy to roll with these guys. And at times they were even getting good positions on him. And then the next day he comes in and he's wearing a crispy brown belt, right? Got that nice brown belt wrapped around his waist. And then all of a sudden, the blues and purples start rolling with him a little bit differently, a little bit more timidly. They don't really go for it as much. And it's just like, I've seen this happen so many times. Now, for me, in my experience, I didn't do this. I rolled with higher belts differently when I was a white belt, but I didn't do it in the sense like what you're talking about and like these guys did against this brown belt. I rolled with him with the mindset of, I'm going to lose. He's going to crush me. So I might as well go for it, right? Might as well try to go after him a little bit. That was the mindset I used to take against him. And I think this was probably because I rolled with my coach, who was a purple belt at the time when I was a white belt. And again, I'm focusing on this because my problems changed when I got to my blue belt and my purple belt and so on. That's when I started to actually have more anxiety rolling with people with the belt because I was trying to uphold a sort of a standard for myself, an expectation. But as a white belt, I had no expectation. I just didn't care. I was like, I know I suck, so I'm going to go after him. And when I would roll with my coach and all the higher belts in the gym, because back then there just wasn't a lot of people training, and I was training with higher people for the most part, I knew I was going to lose. So I was like, well, screw it. I might as well try to like give him a good run, make him work a little bit, make him sweat a little bit. Maybe I can knock him off balance. Maybe I can survive for another minute or so. Like, that was my goal. It was never really to win. I knew I wasn't going to win. And in turn, because I took on that mindset, every now and then I would hit something on them, right? I would actually hit a technique on them cleanly because I just didn't care, right? There was no anxiety associated with the roll. I was like, I have nothing to pull. I have no expectation. I'm trying to win. I'm just trying to go for it to see what I can get going. And when I would roll in tournaments, this came in handy a few times. One in particular was when I was a white belt, I beat a purple belt in a competition. When I went into this competition, I didn't realize this, but basically what they did is, this was at the Arnold Classic in 2004, they took the white belts to purple belts roughly, and they combined them together into a solid group, and they called this the amateur division. Then they took the browns and blacks, and that was the pro division. Well, in the amateur division, I was in, I didn't realize that I was going to be up against purple belts and blue belts and so on. So when I'm in the bullpen, we got a couple hours to kill. I'm sort of walking around talking to the guys. I'm like, hey man, how long you been training? Like, I started hearing answers like 2 years, 4 years, 8 years. And I quickly realized, man, I'm in over my head. Like, these guys have been training a lot longer than I have. They're better than me. They're higher belts. So I was like, well, maybe there's a white belt somewhere in here that I'll end up going against. So when I got to on the mat for my match, I remember like waiting for my opponent to come out. I didn't know who it was going to be, and I see this guy walk through the crowd as they're calling his name out. And when he walks towards me to get to the center of the mat, it was the guy that had been training for 6 years and had like won some pretty big tournaments that I found out later on. But what I didn't know that at the time, but I just knew 6 years. And so I quickly was like, oh man, I'm going to get crushed. Now, this was kind of beneficial because as soon as he came out, all the anxiety that I normally went into with the match, because, you want to win, that was dashed. That was gone because I was like, I'm not going to win. I'm going to lose this match. So let's go out, firing off and going after something, right? Might as well do that. Might as well make him work for it. So during the match, though, I actually won because I had no anxiety. I had no nerves associated with it. I was throwing out Hail Marys. I was just going for anything that I could. And because of that, I ended up beating him about 6 points to 2. I want to say this is score. It's been a long time, and I don't have video of it, but I remember having 3 takedowns, and he had a sweep at one point, and we had a scramble. So I think it ended up 6-2, and I beat him on just takedowns and points. But again, for me, like, that was a nice little feather in my cap as a white belt. I was like, I beat a purple belt. And it happened because I didn't have any expectation. And then the next round, I went up against a guy who had 8 years of training, who I started to I was like, maybe I can actually win this thing. And then the expectations came back, and then I got beaten. But it wasn't just that, he was just good. But that's kind of the mindset that I would tell you to have, Mina, is that if you're going to roll with someone that's higher ranked than you, you have nothing to lose, right? You're supposed to lose. I tell this to my students all the time, right? Like when I roll with them, some of them will not go for things, and I'll leave it there for them. I'll just leave my arm, arm bar me. And because I want to see them do an arm bar. I want to see if their movement's good so I can see, hey, are these guys learning the arm bar effectively? Do I need to cover this? So I'm kind of trying to get a feel for them. And they'll have it, and I can see them wanting to go for it, and they don't go for it. And I'll ask them, why didn't you go for the arm bar? And they're like, well, because I felt like you were setting something up. And I was like, man, and I told them, I was like, look, if any point, if I want to, I can shut this whole thing down and you don't move. I can submit you every 30 seconds on the second or on the minute if I want to, right? You can't stop me. So when you roll with me, go for it. Go for whatever you can go for. And if you get submitted, we go again, and you go again, and you go again, because that's the only way that you're going to improve against rolling with these higher belts is you got to go for it, right? It's like watching one of those old 80s montages. You might be too young for this, but back in all the 80s movies, there was always the mentor or the person that was better, right? You can think of Bloodsport or even Rocky movies and stuff like that. And over time, the guy, the character goes for it, and eventually, right, they overtake, or at least kind of get on par with the person they're training with or the master. And it's kind of like that. It's like you're supposed to go for it. When you're up against a higher belt, you're supposed to try to win. And again, you have to just kind of get rid of the mindset of I'm going to lose, so why even go for it, and go for the mindset of I'm going to lose, so no pressure on me, now let's just go for it. Let's go for it. Let's just throw everything that we can and try to win. So Mina, that's the mindset that I would tell you to take on, and hopefully this is helpful to you. And guys, as always, thanks for the questions. I'll talk to you soon.